Good morning and welcome to the Daily Connect. My name is Raymond. I'm so glad that you are joining me on this journey through the Word, through the book of Numbers. And man, it's been quite a journey, right? If you've been joining me through this book and also going through a lot of the other books, how they all interconnect and how they all really speak to who God is, it's been pretty eye-opening. In the book of Numbers, we've been learning a lot about, in a sense, worship and how everything lines up, how everything is orderly when it comes to worship, whether the nation of Israel is on the march or when they're camped. There's order literally surrounding worship. And then we also read about the rebellions and how God handled those rebellions and the intercession of Moses and of Aaron in each of these instances. Today is no exception. Today we're going to see something a little bit more actually now directed towards Moses and Aaron as well. So they're not completely, if you'll bear with me, if they're not completely fully holy. And I think we could say that about all of us. We tend to have moments where we're just not ourselves. We're living according to the flesh, just for certain moments, and in key moments when God is calling us to do one thing and we go in the other direction, there are consequences to that. And today is no exception. All right, let's take a look at Numbers chapter 20. We're starting into Numbers chapter 20 today. Good morning to each and every one of you. Good morning to you, Jeanette, Joanna, Vince, and everyone who's watching this live. Thank you so much for setting aside arguably the best part of your day and giving it over to the Lord. I really believe that the Lord's going to bless you through this. All right, let's open up our Bibles to Numbers chapter 20, and let's see what the Lord has to say. So again, we're going through the book of Numbers, and I titled this Unjustifiable Frustration Before the Lord. Not staying in alignment with God. Numbers chapter 20. Again, just looking at the first baker's dozen of verses here. Let's start with verse 1. And the people of Israel and the whole congregation came into the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh, and Miriam died there and was buried there. Let's pause here for a moment. Believe it or not, there's a number of interesting details that are brought up just in this first verse alone. Are you seeing it? What are some of the things that may catch your eye? Well, let me share some of my notes here. So the timing, first off, is a little bit unclear. It's not sure how many years have elapsed or how much time has elapsed, but we do know that it is the first month of the year, and so that should align with the Exodus, the Passover, the celebration of the Passover. So this should be a moment, or this should be a season where they celebrate the Passover. But we're not sure if it's coming or if they're overriding it, whatever it may be. And then we also see that they're back at Kadesh. Do you remember where Kadesh is? Kadesh was where the 12 spies, after they spied out the land, came back to the nation of Israel. And so if you're tracking this, they probably went around in a circle and then came back to this very place, Kadesh, and so and again, if you want to familiarize yourself with that mention of Kadesh, go to Numbers chapter 13, specifically verse 26, and that's where you'll find that the spies came back to Kadesh, and now after marching around through the wilderness, they have come back to this area. We also see that Miriam dies here, and there's a brief moment of reverence. Miriam is the only woman listed here in this of this generation, quite honestly, the only woman that was remembered of this generation. And so I would imagine they paused here to honor Miriam because not only was she a prophetess, not only is she the sister to the Most High Priest, but she was basically a songwriter as well, and very influential in the community. Not to mention, there was that one moment where she rebelled against Moses, but that's I'm sure that's not something that they're going to necessarily want to remember. But they did pause, and there is this 30-day period of mourning that that a lot of them will go through, if not the whole nation. And because of this, and I think it's important to kind of keep this in the back of our minds, the passing away of Miriam probably influenced Moses's attitude and his approach, or basically he may have fallen into a depression because they were close. Because here you have the sister that literally risked her life when Moses was a baby to save him, and so there's probably this special connection between Moses and Miriam, and the passing, her passing, probably deeply affected Moses, and we'll see this in a moment here. Let's continue. Verse 2. Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. And the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Would that we had perished with our brothers when our brothers perished before the Lord. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness, that we should die here, both we and our cattle? And why have you made us come up out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place? It is no place for grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Sound familiar? It's quite interesting. You know, we're seeing kind of a deja vu moment, if you will, on a number of fronts. And so again, this is a familiar setting. There's a lack of water supply for the people. And very much like what we saw in Exodus chapter 17, verses 2 and 3, the people complained, but this complaint takes it even further. It actually goes way beyond what was experienced back in Exodus chapter 17. If you recall, Exodus 17, and if you recall any of basically the pattern, when the people rebelled, they were rebuked, and that particular spot where they rebuked was named something. It was given a name to represent or symbolize what had happened there. And that place in Exodus 17 was called Merah and Meribah. But here, interesting, they've come back to this place. Well, we'll find out more in a moment here, but this complaint was definitely a lot more extensive. So in addition to the complaint, they were about being brought out of Egypt and how they're complaining about you've led us out for us to die. But they've also gone as far as saying, man, we wish we had died with these other rebellious members, which is huge. This is a huge statement. And it's almost like a double slap before God. And if that wasn't enough, they were still complaining about the fact that God led them into this evil place. If we know that God is a good God and gives good things, how can one turn around and say, "You have led us into this evil or into this evil place"? Everything that the people are doing right here, right now, completely wrong, and it's just going to come back upon them shortly here. And then the irony here also, the mention of these fruit, the grains and the figs and the pomegranates. Well, guess what? These were the exact same things that were brought in from the promised land by the 12 spies. And here they are, they're complaining that there is none of that here. Well, yes, that's obvious, right? Because you rebelled, and as a result, you are not going to be in the place where there are going to be figs and pomegranates. The irony in that statement, it's almost as if they felt like they were entitled to it. But let's continue. Verse 6. Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. This ought to sound familiar. Every time the people grumbled or rebelled, what were the leaders doing? They didn't turn around and rebuke them. They turned around and fell on their faces, and they interceded on behalf of the people. Lord, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're saying, and we want to intercede on their behalf. I can only imagine the dialogue that they must have with God, in the presence of God, literally. And so here again, they came into the presence of God, face down, and interceded on behalf of the people. Verse 7. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the staff, assemble the congregation, you and Aaron, your brother, tell the rock before their eyes to yield its water. So you shall bring water out of the rock for them and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. Now, a couple things to note here. These instructions are familiar to what was mentioned in Exodus 17, that first instance of the people complaining about water. It's similar in that, it's similar and it's different. It sounds familiar because the sequence is very much in parallel to each other. But here, what do we see? We see that what's the same is the rod, and then the mention about gather the congregation. Versus Exodus 17, it says gather the elders, and then in this instance here, we're talking about speak to the rock, which or say to the rock, however your translation is. Quite the opposite of what was mentioned in Exodus 17. That one was strike the rock. Now, it's important to note these instructions, how similar and how different they are. Gather your rod, gather the people, not just the leaders, gather all the people, and speak to the rock. Don't strike it, speak to the rock. This miracle requires, and as every miracle does, it requires this human agency to perform it. God works through these people. All the more wild, to work through someone who is completely unqualified, as a contrast to the fact that only God can do this. And so there is this need for, I should say need, not that God needs to work miracles through us, but this participation gives us that opportunity to reveal God all the more. But watch what happens next. Verse 9. And Moses took the staff from before the Lord, and as he commanded him. Now, here we're not sure if this is the rod of Aaron. That was, if you recall, Aaron's staff was one that budded as a I just blanked out on the word, as a means to kind of prove that Aaron is the one ordained and appointed for the priesthood. Again, in light of that rebellion against Aaron and the priesthood. But did he take his own staff, or did he take the staff of Aaron? We're not sure, but the bottom line is Moses was obedient. Yes, he's going to do exactly what he's called to do, faithful and dutiful. Or did he? Let's take a look. Verse 10. Then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock and said to them, "Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water out for you out of this rock? Shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" And Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice, and water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their livestock. Did you see what happened there? He did not speak to the rock. He struck it. And so here, Moses' tone towards the people was basically a rebellious attitude of his own. Again, this may be a result of the passing of Miriam. So he's probably in a depression. He's probably not in the right mindset, and he's probably thinking to himself, "Man, you people are grumbling at a time like this. I'm trying to mourn here, guys. I'm trying to, and you're complaining about water." And so, out of his frustration, instead of addressing the rock, he struck the rock. And he didn't just strike it once. He probably just went back to the way he was used to, what he had done, probably at the same exact rock, too. If this place is indeed called Meribah, then he has probably come to the same place where all of this had taken place before. And instead of striking the rock once, he struck it twice. So again, this striking, number one, it's a strike against God, but to do it twice, that's almost like saying he struck God twice. He was supposed to just merely speak to the rock, but instead he struck it, and probably out of frustration, struck it twice. But then the water burst forth, and so what that demonstrates is God's mercy. God could have looked upon this moment and said, "Moses, you blew it. You were supposed to speak to the rock, but instead you disobeyed and you struck the rock twice." But God still allowed the water to flow through. In fact, it burst forth, right? Again, quite a demonstration of God's mercy here. Let's continue. Verse 12. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not believe in me to uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them." Now, if you go back to what Moses had said, do we remember anything about how the Lord was working in this moment? No, it was more of Moses saying, "You guys, I will. I'll bring the water," and struck the rock. Again, God's mercy shone through it, but clearly Moses himself did everything wrong in his response, as justified as it may be, at least in his mind. But we see the consequences of Moses' action here. But yet, it's funny, and not really funny, but Moses and Aaron are judged here. Perhaps God was saying, "Aaron, you could have jumped in and did something, but you didn't." And that also speaks to Aaron's character. We saw him with regards to the golden calf instance, right? But here, again, the reason was the fact that they failed to trust in the Lord in the instructions that the Lord gave them. This is what God calls you to do, and you chose not to go in that route. And so, as a result, you will not see the land. You will not lead the people into the promised land. You'll only see it. And at least for Moses, he got to see it. For Aaron, we're going to see later, he doesn't get that opportunity. Let's finish this up. Verse 13. These are the waters of Meribah, where the people of Israel quarreled with the Lord, and through them he showed himself holy. So again, now we know that we know a little bit more about this particular context here. This is, and if we were to try to plot the path that they moved in, this would be a great indicator. They have returned back to this place called Meribah, and it is just like that of Exodus 17. And again, where these places are exactly, and perhaps there is this possibility that maybe there's another place called Meribah. Again, about the people contending. So this could be the same place. This could be a different place with the same name. But most likely it is the same place, same name, same rock, same complaint. What are we learning out of all of this? Well, for me, my big takeaway is this. God's holiness cannot be used to justify disobedience and rebellious attitudes. We can't justify our wrongdoing, our disobedience by saying, this is good for God. This is what God would have wanted me to do. You know, we can't go around saying this is I'm doing the right thing because this is what God would have done. If God's given us specific instructions, we've got to be obedient to that, and we don't want to start making up our own rules, our own ways. I mean, yes, there are going to be opportunities where the Lord gives us that freedom to be able to operate and work within a particular context according to our gifting and to our skills and our abilities and everything. But when God specifically says, this is what you are called to do, let's make sure we follow it to a T. If he's given us explicit instructions, let's follow it to the T. Let's not compromise on that, and let's not justify it according to God's holiness. That's not how God's holiness works. Amen. All right. Once again, thank you everyone for spending this time together, looking at God's word. And I hope you have an opportunity to kind of revisit this passage throughout this day, or at least kind of meditate upon it. What is God speaking to you? How is he revealing in all of this? And share that with someone around you. Like, wow, you know what? I read this passage. This is what I got out of it. Make sure that someone also is the benefactor of how God is speaking to you. Good morning to you also, Gene, Missy, Rich. Thank you so much, guys, for joining and sharing in this time together. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate just going on this journey through the Word together with you all. If you've got any prayer requests, any questions, you know, I want to encourage you to share them. Share them in the live chat. Share them in the comments below if you're watching this later. And let's pray together. Let's examine these questions together. Have a great day, guys. I'm not going to ask you to type anything other than what you've already shared in the live chat. Good stuff. You guys are awesome. I'm praying for you all. I love you all. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care.